Hello friends, welcome to our new video. GST is not applicable on transactions occurring outside India. This is the advance ruling from Karnataka Authority for Advance Ruling. Brief of the case is that the applicant manufactures steel dies as per the requirement of foreign customer. After approval, he uses this die to manufacture aluminium and zinc castings. Die is billed to foreign customer but is actually not exported. The same is exported after the casting order is over or the life of die is over, or it may be scrapped. They also import such die from Thailand on the same principle. So the applicant went to the Advance Ruling Authority and put up the following questions regarding export and import. The export questions were: first point, whether the applicant raised the tax invoice addressed to the foreign buyer and delivery to the applicant works by paying output GST and claiming back the applicant as input GST, or whether the applicant raised self invoice by paying the output GST and claiming back the applicant as input GST, or whether the applicant raised the tax invoice addressed to the foreign buyer by paying the output GST under reverse charge mechanism, or the applicant seeks the procedure to be followed under GST Act for discharging GST liability. This case is Dolphin Die Casting Private Limited by Advance Ruling Authority Karnataka, Advance Ruling number KAR ADRG 35/2020, and date of judgment is 20th May 2020. Facts of the case were that Messrs. Dolphin Die Cast Private Limited, number 266-B, KIADB Industrial Area, 4th phase, Bomasandra Giani Link Road, Bengaluru, 562106, hereinafter referred to as the applicant, is a private limited company registered with GST number 29AAA CD 5294 L1Z6, filed an application with Advance Ruling Authority under Section 97 of the CGST Act 2017, read with Rule 104 of CGST Rules and Section 97 of KGST Act 2017, read with Rule 104 of KGST Rules 2017, inform GST ARA 01 and discharge the fee of Rs 5,000 each under CGST Act and KGST Act. That is, total of Rs 10,000 has been paid. The applicant is manufacturer and exporter of aluminium zinc die castings. The applicant first manufactures the steel die as per the requirement and specification given by the foreign customer. After seeking approval and specifications given by the foreign customer, the applicant uses steel dies for making aluminium and zinc die castings. These manufactured aluminium and zinc die castings are exported to overseas customer along with sub-assemblies and other components against the order. However, the applicant retains the steel die till the completion of export order or completion of the life of the die. The applicant has raised the tax invoice for the steel die in the name of overseas customer in foreign currency for receipt of payment, though the die is not physically exported to the foreign customer. However, after the completion of the export order or completion of the life of the die, the applicant either export the dies to the overseas customer or scrap the die at the applicant's end as per the instruction of the customer. In view of the above, the applicant has sought an advance ruling in respect of the following issues: whether the applicant raised the tax invoice addressed to the foreign buyer and delivery to the applicant works by paying output GST and claiming back the applicant as input GST, or whether the applicant raised self invoice by paying the output GST and claiming back by the applicant as input GST, or whether the applicant raised the tax invoice addressed to the foreign buyer by paying the output GST under reverse charge mechanism, or applicant seeks the procedure to be followed under GST Act for discharging GST liability. Further, the applicant submitted that the applicant places an order for manufacture and supply of aluminium zinc castings and pressure die casting component of aluminium to Thailand supplier, that is foreign supplier. Thailand supplier first manufactures the die as per the requirement and specifications given by the applicant, and after seeking approval for the dies, the Thailand supplier manufactures and supplies the aluminium casting and pressure die casting component of aluminium to the applicant. However, the Thailand supplier retains the die till the completion of the order or completion of the life of the die. Further, the applicant submitted that the Thailand supplier raised the tax invoice for this die in the name of the applicant, though the die is not physically imported. However, after the completion of the order or completion of the life of the die, the applicant either imports the die and returns to the domestic customer, or as per the instruction of the domestic customer, or the applicant informs the Thailand supplier to scrap the die at their end. In view of the above, the applicant seeks an advance ruling in respect of following issues, that is import. Whether the applicant accounts for the purchase commercial invoice and pay the GST under reverse charge mechanism, or applicant seeks the procedure to be followed under GST Act for discharging GST liability. Now, the advance ruling made certain discussions. At the outset, we would like to make it clear that the provisions of CGST Act 2017 and KGST Act 2017 are in paramateria and have the same provision in like matter and differ from each other only on a few specific provisions. Therefore, unless a mention is particularly made to such dissimilar provisions, a reference to the CGST Act would also mean reference to the corresponding similar provisions in KGST Act. We have considered the submissions made by the applicant in their application for advance ruling as well as the submissions made by Shri S. Raghu, Manager Accounts and the authorized representative during the personal hearing. We also considered the issues involved on which advance ruling is sought by the applicant and relevant facts of the case. On verification of the nature of the activity carried out by the applicant, it was observed that the applicant is a manufacturer and exporter of aluminium and zinc die castings to the overseas customer. The applicant first manufactures the die mold as per the requirement and specifications given by the customer. This die is retained by the applicant and used for the manufacture and supply of aluminium and zinc die castings. The applicant raises the tax invoice for this die in the name of overseas customer in foreign currency for receipt of payment, though the die is not physically imported to the customer. However, after completion of the export order or completion of the die life, the applicant either exports the die to the overseas customer or scrap the die at applicant's end as per the instruction of the customer. That is, the applicant manufactures the die, use them for the production of casting molds, and thereafter after the order is completed or the life of the die is over, they export them, or if applicant says they scrap the die at their end also. Similarly, sometimes the applicant is an importer of the aluminium casting and pressure die casting component of aluminium from Thailand. The Thailand supplier first manufactures the die as per the requirement and specifications given by the applicant, retains them and uses the same for manufacture of aluminium casting and pressure die casting component of aluminium to the applicant. The Thailand supplier raises the tax invoice in the name of the applicant, though the die is not physically imported. After the completion of the order or completion of the die life, the applicant either imports the die and returns to the domestic customer, or as per the instruction of the domestic customer, the applicant informs the Thailand supplier to scrap the die at their end. With this in background, the applicant has sought an advance ruling on the questions as mentioned in para 4 and 7 above. As per the IGST Act 2017, the export of goods and import of goods are defined as under. Section 2, subsection 5 of the IGST Act defines the export of goods as export of goods with its grammatical variations and cognate expressions means taking goods out of India to a place outside India. And section 2, subsection 10 of IGST Act defines the import of goods as import of goods with its grammatical variations and cognate expressions means bringing goods into India from a place outside India. Further, the time of supply of goods as per section 12 of CGST Act is as under. Time of supply of goods, subsection 1 says, the liability to pay tax on goods shall arise at the time of supply as determined in accordance with the provisions of this section. Subsection 2 says, the time of supply of goods shall be earlier of the following dates, namely, the date of issue of invoice by the supplier or the last date on which he is required under subsection 1 of section 31 to issue invoice with respect to the supply, or the date on which supplier receives the payment with respect to such supply. Provided that where the supplier of taxable goods receives an amount up to ₹1,000 in excess of the amount indicated in the tax invoice, the supply to the extent of such excess amount shall, at the option of the said supplier, be the date of issue of invoice in respect of such excess amount. Explanation 1 says, For the purpose of clause A and B, supply shall be deemed to have been made to the extent it is covered by the invoice, or as the case may be, the payment. Explanation 2 says, for the purpose of clause B, the date on which the supplier receives the payment shall be the date on which payment is entered in his books of accounts, or date on which the payment is credited to his bank account, whichever is earlier. Subsection 3 says, in case of supplies in respect of which tax is paid or liable to be paid on reverse charge basis, the time of supply shall be earliest of the following dates, namely, the date of receipt of goods, or the date of payment as entered in the books of accounts of the recipient, or the date on which payment is debited in his bank account, whichever is earlier, the date immediately following 30 days from the issue of invoice or any other document by whatever name called in lieu thereof by the supplier. Provided that where it is not possible to determine the time of supply under clause A or B or C, the time of supply shall be date of entry in the books of accounts of recipient of supply. Further, clause C of subsection 1 of section 10 of IGST Act, the place of supply of goods other than supply of goods imported into or exported from India shall be as under. Where the supply does not involve movement of goods whether by supplier or the recipient, the place of supply shall be the location of such goods at the time of delivery to the recipient. Further, as per subsection 1 of section 8 of the IGST Act, subject to the provisions of section 10, supply of goods where the location of the supplier and place of supply of goods are in same state or same union territory shall be treated as intra-state supply. From the above, it is observed that applicant manufactures the die as per the requirement and specifications given by the for buyer land. Using this die, the applicant manufactures and exports the aluminium and zinc die casting to the foreign buyer by retaining the die with them till the completion of the export order or completion of the die life. However, the applicant raised the tax invoice for this die immediately after the manufacture in the name of overseas customer in foreign currency for receipt of payment, though the die is not physically moved out of India to the place outside India. Hence, manufacture and supply of die to the foreign customer does not amount to export as per section 2 subsection 5 of the IGST Act 2017. Further, it is rightly admitted by the applicant that the tax invoice raised by the manufacturer of the die in the name of foreign customer is in foreign currency for receipt of payment. The date of issue of tax invoice by the applicant is the time of supply of die to the foreign customer as per section 12 of the CGST Act 2017. Further, on date of issue of tax invoice, the die is with the applicant and it is not moved either by the applicant or by the foreign customer. Hence, the place of supply of goods other than supply of goods imported India or exported from India shall be location of such goods at the time of delivery to the recipient as per clause C of subsection 1 of section 10 of IGST Act 2017. Therefore, the place of supply of die in this case is the location of the applicant. In view of the above, the location of the supplier of die and place of supply of the die to the foreign customer are one and the same, that is location of the applicant. And such being the case, the said transaction shall be treated as intra-state transaction as per subsection 1 of section 8 of IGST Act 2017. An applicant has to issue the CGST and SGST tax invoice to the foreign customer and liable to collect and pay CGST and SGST tax. Further, if the said steel die is scrapped at the applicant's end without moving out of the country as per the instruction of overseas customer, the applicant has to issue intra or interstate tax invoice depending upon the nature of the transaction and collect and pay applicable tax as per the provisions of GST Act 2017 while supplying the die scrap. Similarly, the applicant is the importer of aluminium casting and pressure die casting component of aluminium from Thailand. The Thailand supplier first manufactured die as per the requirement and specifications given by the applicant, retained with them and used for manufacture of aluminium castings and pressure die casting component of aluminium to the applicant. Thailand supplier raised tax invoice in the name of the applicant, though the die is not physically imported by the applicant. The said transaction does not amount to imports as per section 2 subsection 10 of IGST Act 2017. Further, after completion of the order or die life, if applicant physically imports the die from the place outside India to a place in India, then the applicant is liable to pay IGST tax on reverse charge mechanism and claim IGST tax paid as input tax credit if eligible. Further, if steel die belonging to the applicant is scrapped at the location of the overseas supplier without die coming to India, then such transaction is a transaction occurring outside the taxable territory, that is India, and hence is not under the purview of GST. Now, coming to the ruling part, in the case of manufacture of die by the applicant and invoice to the recipient without moving the goods, the applicant has to raise the tax invoice addressed to the foreign buyer. Since it is an intra-state supply, he has to collect the CGST and SGST and discharge the liability. The applicant is not eligible to claim said payment as input tax credit on the invoice raised by him as he is not the recipient. Further, if the said steel die is scrapped at the applicant's end as per the instruction of the overseas customer without moving out of the country, while supplying the die scrap to the third party, the applicant has to issue intra or interstate tax invoice depending upon the nature of the transaction and collect and pay the applicable tax as per the provisions of GST Acts. In the case of manufacture of die by the Thailand supplier, if applicant physically imports the die to a place in India, then applicant has to pay IGST on reverse charge mechanism and claim the IGST tax paid as input tax credit, subject to the conditions applicable. Further, if the steel die belonging to the applicant is scrapped at the location of the overseas customer without die coming to India, then such transaction is occurring outside the taxable territory, that is India, and hence not under the purview of GST Acts. Thank you so much. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel.